You know what? Normally I have like a thing to talk. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about here, but I'm just going to tell you the season starts very quickly here. We are 2 days away from practice. By the time a lot of y'all are seeing this, practice will be tomorrow for the Georgia Bulldogs. And in the last 9 months, 8 months, whatever it is, 7 months and 3 weeks, this has been a very good run for Georgia. You're talking about a national championship that you celebrated starting on right on top of 11 o'clock the night of the 10th and of January. And the journey from that time until today, I mean, I have still not watched the national championship game. I'm not sure when I'll have time to pull that off. It may be just something I don't get the ability to do. And that's fine because we are now at the point where the 22 season is upon us. Oregon is in a situation where they don't have practice, they don't have school for some time. They're in semesters. I mean, excuse me, they're on quarters. So, the Ducks are in full camp mode for the bulk of the time that they are preparing for Georgia. Will that make a big difference? It shouldn't. I mean, like Georgia should not lose this game, and if they do, there's a problem. So we'll just address that at the time. But it's a really exciting time heading into football. For all of y'all watching, you're not there yet, right? I mean, if you're a high school football player or a parent that has children in high school or in the cheerleading or the band, it's closer than college football. It is a couple of weeks away. But college ball will really start and we've gotten to the point where there are three teams that sort of need to be watched right now. And if you look at the betting odds, which I do often, those three are Georgia, not in order. In order, the um, the teams are Alabama, then Ohio State. They jumped over Georgia. Uh, Well, actually, now that I look at it, they are the majority of they are higher everywhere. Ohio State, other than a couple places where they're tied. But essentially, Alabama, then Ohio State, who's made a move in the summer to higher up in the national rankings as far as betting is concerned. Then the Dogs, and then there's a pretty big drop off. So Clemson is anywhere from double the odds to win to triple of what Georgia's got. And then from Clemson, it drops almost double from there to USC and Texas A&M. Oklahoma is still hanging out around the same area as Notre Dame, Michigan, Texas, and Utah. This is where you start getting into sucker bets. Is almost anything I would say past Clemson. With Clemson, you're in a situation where they've got an advantageous schedule. They're not playing in the SEC. They go on the road to Notre Dame. They host NC State, and there's a couple of things here and there, but I'm not even going to look it up because there's just not a lot of games they can lose. The problem for Clemson is, unlike Georgia and Alabama, losing the game could knock them out of the playoff. I think, and I've talked about this a lot, I think the team that really could be there at the end as the fourth team, the so-called fourth team, is Oregon, is Utah, because Utah has the capability to get to the end, and they play quality teams along the way. Now it is mandatory that they beat the Gators at the start. If they do not beat Florida, I'm not talking about Utah again. I think they will beat Florida. But when you hear this schedule is not a bad one. You got to go to Florida at the Swamp. You should win that game. I'm going to skip some of the games that they should just easily win. They got a back-to-back with USC and UCLA. They travel to UCLA at the Rose. I think they'll win that game. It's the USC game at home. That's the one you got to kind of watch out for. And then they close with a schedule that will be comparative to other higher end teams, Stanford and Oregon. They close at Colorado to finish the season, but that's not a bad That is not a bad schedule to have. The other dark horse team, there are two more. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about them, and then I want to talk about the dogs. Number one, BYU. I mean, like it's a very it's. I almost never talk about BYU, but in looking at their situation, they have a very advantageous schedule as well. They play Baylor at home. They go to Oregon. They play Notre Dame in Vegas. That is as close to a home game as they'll get. They play Arkansas at home. They play at Liberty, which nobody will care about. They play Boise, and then they play at Stanford. If they're undefeated, they belong in the playoff, period, point blank, no other discussion. And then the final team I'll talk about as the sort of outlier here. Uh, if Notre Dame has one loss and it's to Ohio State, they're going to be in the playoff because they will have played uh, Cal, Ohio State, North Carolina, who Stanford, BYU, and Clemson and USC. So Ohio State, USC, Clemson, those are all top 10 teams in theory. You also have BYU, Stanford, North Carolina, and Cal. That is a great schedule if you can beat Ohio State. I don't know that they will, but that season isn't over if they don't lose to if they lose to Ohio State. They can keep on and keep playing. But they got to beat Clemson at that point. I mean, there's no excuse not to beat Clemson and really expect to get in the playoff. And even then, you got to play at USC. So we'll just see. I think it's going to be an awesome college football season. We never know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know heading into these things. I know this: pick up DAWGSTRUCTION today, y'all. This is running out of time, and the reason why is the 2022 preview that I've got that everybody's very excited about. I'm running low on these now, and the time is running out too. So make sure you're picking up both of these. DAWGSTRUCTION will still be available later this month and into September. This won't. So get it now for free. Package it up together. The folks at Red Zone have about 15 of these remaining, okay? And they have 6 books remaining. So we're running low at Red Zone. Get these now. The link is down below. I really appreciate everything that Red Zone's done on Clayton. Go to the arch, go north, take a left on Clayton. That's against the traffic. It's a one-way street. And you will be able to, boy, now I said that's against the traffic. Yes, that is against the traffic. So go against the traffic and you'll go down on Clayton towards Georgia Theater. You'll see the red zone on the left. This is going to be about the offensive line. This is going to be about the inside linebackers. This is going to be about Stetson. This is going to be about the receivers. This is going to be about getting through every single game Georgia plays. I am going to predict them now. I don't know that I'll give you scores, but I'm going to predict these games. You're welcome. I did not think I'd be doing this, but we're having fun, and just hang on. I'm even going to give you scores. Oregon, Georgia. Georgia's going to win this game. They'll win it something like 35-17. And I think that will be a solid. Probably, you know what? I'm going to say 41-17 actually. The Sanford Bulldogs. That's going to be 55-3 at South Carolina. Georgia will win that game. They are going to go and win it. I'm going to say 35-17. The Kent State game is going to be a 45-0 win. Actually, swap the Sanford and Kent State scores. At Missouri, Georgia will win that game 45-10. Auburn and Athens, Georgia will win that game 28-17. Vanderbilt and Athens, Georgia will win that game 52-7. 52-3, excuse me. Game in Jacksonville, the Dogs will beat the Gators. I think they will win this game 31-17. I think it will be a little closer than folks would like. Tennessee, I think the Dogs are going to win that game 38-24. At Mississippi State, this is the game I wonder if Georgia is going to have to save themselves, either this game or the next. So I think they'll win at Mississippi State and win that game probably 45 to like 30 or something like that. I think Mississippi State maybe can can score a little bit on the Dogs at home. And then up at Kentucky, I expect this to be a grinded out deal, but I think that's a problem for the Cats. I'm going to go 31 to 17. Let's say 31-14, Georgia. And then Georgia Tech, I mean, I think Georgia's going to beat them 55 to, what was the score last year? This is, I'm not going to go crazy here. Okay, it was 45 nothing. I'm going to say it's going to be 49 to nothing this time. I don't think Georgia Tech's going to score on the Dogs. Yeah, I think they're going to be undefeated. I am certain there will be games closer than that. I think they're going to be undefeated. I also think they're going to lose a game, which is not really possible at the same time. So whatever. I mean, I'm not dumb enough to really think that they'll go 12-0. But when you look at these game by game, it's really hard to pick out a game that they certainly will lose. I mean, I think when you look at November, that's their toughest stretch. Tennessee, Mississippi State, and Kentucky, those are tricky games. They could lose all three of those games. Losing to the Gators, I'm not sure I buy that. And then the first sort of, what is that, 6 games of the season? I mean, Oregon and Atlanta, at Carolina, okay. Other than that, Auburn coming to Georgia, I mean, Auburn's going to have to really throw it together and get better. Florida is going to have to really throw it together and get better. But let's just see how this season progresses. Here, I will leave you with this, and I'm sure we'll do more prognostications for Georgia's season as it comes along. I would not at all be surprised. I would not be shocked if Georgia won the national championship again. That's asking a lot, but these guys are really good. The question is, are they better than Ohio State? Are they better than Alabama? We won't know that until they play those teams. But that's it. That's my predictions for the 2022 season. Haters, have at it in the comments section.